This Late Night Linux Family podcast is made possible by our patrons. Go to latenightlinux.com/support for details of how you can join them. Support us on Patreon for access to ad-free episodes and early releases. That's latenightlinux.com/support. Hello and welcome to episode 357 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 20th of October 2025. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelim.
Evening.
Graham.
Hello.
And Will.
Hello.
Michael at Phronix wrote an interesting, if quite rambling piece. Intel's open source strategy is changing at odds with the ethos of open source. There's a register piece that is a bit more coherent and less in-depth. Now, Intel have, over the last year or so, and it's kind of ramped up in the last few months, been laying off a lot of people, and a lot of those people have been involved in Linux and open source endeavors. And then Intel's executive vice president and general manager of the data center group said at an event recently, "We need to find a balance where we use open source software as an advantage to Intel and not let everyone else take it and run with it." And he also said, "We're very proud of our open source contributions. We're going to keep doing that. However, like I mentioned, I want to make sure that it gives us an edge against everyone else." And both these pieces really make the point that once upon a time, Intel just contributed to open source for the greater good. And yeah, it helped out the likes of AMD and other companies, but they didn't care because it was the right thing to do. Whereas now belts have been tightened, they don't give a shit, and the whole Linux ecosystem is going to suffer as a result.
I think Intel's going to suffer more than what they believe, because if I see AMD not doing this and I see Intel doing this, where they have a magic compiler flag that only their hardware can run with a certain tool, then that has become a closed ecosystem I'm not going to use. Essentially, what they're trying to do is to rope you into their system, and that's not an open system. That is a proprietary system that I don't want any part of. I want to be as not beholden to my hardware vendor as possible. That's why I think standards work, open standards work even better, and this type of stuff is the last gasp of a company who can't design a processor that doesn't catch fire. And maybe they should spend more fucking time on that, and rather than complaining that just because they made a compiler flag open, it allowed AMD to what? Make better silicon that actually does a job properly. It's bollocks.
I do think you're right, Phelim. And I think, unfortunately, it'll be mixed up with all kinds of things as probably Intel fails to address the challenges that it's facing, and will still perhaps be influential for other companies that are wanting to do the same thing. I don't think it's going to help Intel, and it's a bit of a poor thing for open source.
I wonder if this might actually help ARM more, who are breaking into servers and more on the desktop now, and do still contribute a considerable amount through their primary ARM enterprise. Now, their licensees less so, but their ARM themselves contribute a decent amount to open source. If people start thinking, well, Intel more difficult to work with, not quite as well supported in the Linux kernel, I'll stick with ARM, thanks, then it could be good news for them.
See, that was a pragmatic reaction. Mine was, what about RISC-V might be made good now? And that is just ridiculous, so sorry.
One day.
I think you're right, Will, definitely. It's very, very short-sighted of them to do this. I understand about bottom lines and everything, but you've got to play the long game, and they have historically played the long game, albeit that didn't really work out for them. So maybe I'm talking out my ass. But I think it was other mistakes. It wasn't the fact that they were spending pocket change effectively on making Linux work properly and contributing to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't the problem, was it?
No.
Qualcomm to acquire Arduino. This is excellent news for everyone involved, isn't it, Will?
Yes and no. Arduino has been part of the furniture for a very long time, but it hasn't really changed in a very long time. I think they do need an injection of money, primarily, and new ideas, and they need to throw off the idea that 8-bit microcontrollers can help you learn things. And I think maybe it was Graham was talking about this a few weeks ago, that you learn to do things in the Arduino way. And because it is a tool for education, they abstract away a lot of the complexity. And I think that is holding it back. It is seen as a education tool, a kind of a toy, and it's not really a serious platform. And that's been fine for the last however many years, 15, 20 years, whatever. But I think it is time that it moves forwards, and it needs somebody with a greater vision and a bigger plan to help them get there. Whether that is Qualcomm or not, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about that side of things.
Well, Rupert Goodwins wrote a piece for the Register called Arduino has a new job selling chips for its new owner. Let's not pretend otherwise. And it's a very cynical piece that I couldn't really argue with, really, the points that he makes. One of which was, why didn't Qualcomm partner with Arduino rather than acquiring them? The only reason is because they wanted full control.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. He makes a point about Raspberry Pi partnering with Broadcom, and although Broadcom didn't want to let all the secrets out with stuff, they were pretty good at getting it to the point where people kind of consider it to be the most open of them all, which it may not actually be, but it's not a forced thing the way Arduino is now going to face it by selling those weird chips that apparently are going to help them do AI on a single board computer. What? Okay.
A pretty cheap single board computer at that. It's like 40 something quid or something, or 40 something dollars.
Yeah, it's clearly just going to be telling whether something's a circle or a square. I don't know.
I can't think of an acquisition that's ever ended well, despite all the rhetoric that comes with the announcement, which is a real shame. I mean, the thing for me is that Arduino has always been, admittedly it's not changed, but it's small and it was quite dynamic. It could react and it could create posts and hardware according to demand and people in the community. And I imagine over time that ability will be eroded and it'll just become part of a large corporate empire.
Yeah, whereas if they'd done a partnership, like Raspberry Pi, as Phelim said, then either one could have walked away at any time. Like Raspberry Pi could walk away from Broadcom. They could go to Qualcomm or whoever to make the chips for them. I don't think that's very likely because they've got a very good relationship. But if that relationship went to shit, they could do that.
I think it was a bit different with Raspberry Pi and Broadcom because Eben, I think at the time he started Raspberry Pi, was still working for them.
Yeah.
So they had that very strong relationship, and he obviously understood Broadcom extremely well and was able to kind of leverage that and then his position at Raspberry Pi to get the best deal, probably for Raspberry Pi, which worked out really well for both of them, but that was unusual.
All that aside, though, this board actually does sound quite interesting. It is a standard Arduino that can sit there running things in a loop, controlling bits of hardware, and then it's, I guess, as equal to a Raspberry Pi, maybe a 3. Yeah, it sounds like quite a cool idea to have, a proper Linux computer sitting there running stuff and then being capable of like uploading stuff to a sort of a hardware monitoring loop watchdog or something like that. So, I mean, as an actual single board computer, it does sound kind of cool. Whether it is actually as open as we would like it to be, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that they will win or lose on the SDK. Like the good thing, one of the many good things about Arduino was the documentation and the size of the community at the software level, but also at the hardware level. And that is really what's going to make this new board be as well received and as well supported as the old boards.
Happy birthday to KDE. P.S. Give us money. So it was recently the 29th anniversary of KDE.
That is really disturbing.
Wow.
Like, really disturbing.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my back.
It's unreal.
Well, they're trying to raise 50,000 euros by the end of the year, and they're already at 19,000.
Yeah, that's gone up by about 500 in the last hour. So I'm hoping that even this can help get that further. It'd be so good to see it because, as they say, the vast majority of KDE users who pay for this are the people who use it, rather than having external contributor companies or the like of big sponsors. It is actual users of the system that pay the most towards it, and it'd be great to see that keep going. And it really helps out with obviously people getting to conferences and things like that as well. So quite cool.
Well, yeah, it's much more sustainable if your users are paying for your thing that you're making.
It does, and it kind of gives you agency to say that, look, the thing I contribute my bit of money to is the thing I use all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's how it should be. I mean, there are people who are not going to be in a position to contribute, and then there'll be people who are comfortably in a position to contribute, and it hopefully all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think they would say, look, you have to have money if you want to use it. That's not at all the way they do it. But if you do have something spare, it can help those other people who can't, sort of thing.
Okay, this episode is sponsored by Tailscale. Go to tailscale.com/LNL. Tailscale is the easiest way to connect devices and services to each other, wherever they are. Tailscale gives you secure remote access to any resource anywhere in the world. Whether that's databases, servers, Kubernetes, on-prem boxes, virtual private clouds, desktop PCs, 3D printers, or off-site backups in your friend's garage. Connect anything and everything you want, wherever it is, and get started in minutes. Tailscale's personal plan will always be free, and you get up to 100 devices and 3 users for free with no credit card required. So support the show and go to tailscale.com/LNL and try Tailscale out today. Or if you want to use Tailscale at an industrial scale, with more users and devices, or take advantage of features like MDM policies, auditing, network flow logging, and priority support, try it out at work using the code Linux25. You'll get 3 free months of any Tailscale paid plan, and you can find out why thousands of companies like Instacart, Hugging Face, and Duolingo have switched to Tailscale. That's code Linux25. We've talked before about Schleswig-Holstein in Germany, which is a state up north, and how they are trying to get rid of Microsoft products and trying to go open source. Well, they've kind of reached a milestone in that they have moved, quote, more than 40,000 accounts and well over 100 million emails and calendar entries away from Microsoft Exchange Server and Outlook to Open Exchange and Thunderbird. This is good.
Yeah, more of this.
Yeah, and more importantly, they're doing it slowly. Like, it's not like they've just suddenly changed everything. They're changing it bit by bit by bit, and that's surely going to make it more sustainable longer term.
I just hope there isn't a Northern European Microsoft headquarters campus that might turn up in some back arse nowhere field somewhere up that way.
You're talking, of course, about the Munich stuff that was, what, 20 years ago?
It wasn't that long ago.
It was, I think it was, you know.
What? No, it wasn't. That is a giant lie.
I think it started about 20 years ago.
Oh, it might have started, but that mayor who wanted the headquarters, because I like Microsoft, so do I. Yeah, you do in your hole. You haven't ever fucking seen it.
Yeah, that might have been about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that was about 10 years when it kind of fizzled out and they went back to Microsoft. But I think the last time we spoke about this, we mentioned that geopolitics has changed now. People in Europe feel that they don't really want to rely on America as much. And so this idea of sovereignty is something that is becoming more and more important to Europe and the EU. And so we are just going to see more of this stuff, I think.
I like it. I wish I could move to Germany.
Unfortunately, you can't anymore.
I hope that more and more projects like this are successful and reported to be successful, and they can work together to try and influence other locales. I think it's great, and that's what I want my tax money to be spent on.
Absolutely, yeah. And the plan is to eventually move the desktops to Linux, but they're not rushing it. Like I said, bit by bit, they're doing it, and this is the right approach to me. I mean, it's very hard to do this stuff quickly in big bureaucracies, and they're moving more quickly than I thought they would.
Yeah, I guess the thing about bureaucracies like that is they don't really get to have nice new toys that often, so I imagine this allows them to spend the budget a bit better.
Well, I do wonder about the Windows 11 situation as well. They've probably got loads of old hardware that can't run 11. Of course, they've got an extra year, but yeah, maybe that's going to speed things up as well.
I had to do a Windows 11 upgrade over the weekend and was reminded quite how opaque all Windows problems are. Like, there's no log file that you can look at where it tells you more or less what the problem is. It's just full of random error messages, which then when you click on more help or explain this, it just takes you to a website with a very generic answer with no actual information on it. So, yeah, Windows is terrible. That's all I have to say about that.
You've just reminded me of an article I read very recently in The Guardian. Apologies. And that was about what you can do when Windows 10 free support ends. And of course, they talk about buying new hardware and upgrading to Windows 11. But they also, this is the first time I've seen it properly done, specifically mention Ubuntu, Canonical's Ubuntu, and Linux as an option, and even links to Canonical's documentation for installing Ubuntu.
Did you have a saved search or something for Canonical documentation, just in case you were mentioned?
Yeah, I never read The Guardian normally. That's what it is.
Well, of course, if you're in the European Economic Area, you can get an extra year for free of updates for Windows 10.
I'm not happy about that. I think you guys should be left out. You and Iceland. Fuck yous.
Well, we're not in the European Economic Area.
Are you not? Are you sure?
We did a Brexit. That's part of it.
See, I'm so confused as to which prime minister within that 17 prime minister span of 3 weeks that you had, as to which...
We're in no economic area.
which Brexit that you actually got done was done.
The only economic area we're in is the shit part of town. But Microsoft was equally confused because I tried it and I was expecting to have to upload settings. This is my dad's laptop. And I had to sign in to a Microsoft account temporarily to enroll it in the updates, and it just worked. And then I signed out and converted it back to a local account, and it was still enrolled. So hopefully I've just kicked that can down the road for another year.
No, I'm not happy with this. I think I still got their number saved in my phone from that time when they tried to delete my Windows 10 Pro license. I'm going to fucking ring them up and make sure this gets solved. Don't you worry.
Don't you be giving those bastard English any free shit.
No fucking licenses for them all, the bastards.
Something that Adam Pig sent us was new in 2025. Linux patches enable PCI support for the Amiga 4000. This must have got you excited, Graham, eh?
Also, a little bit of post-traumatic stress because it's been a long time since I tried to get Linux running on my Amiga, and it was painful. So admittedly, maybe the experience has changed, but it's amazing how the Amiga is still alive and how people are still building hardware for it. And this adds the capabilities of adding PCI cards, but only in Linux. It doesn't work in Amiga OS, which is pretty amazing.
Right. Presumably this thing didn't come with a PCI slot.
No, it didn't. I mean, this is for an Amiga 4000, so it had... The bus system on the Amiga is called Zorro, which I believe is very similar to PCI in many respects. So there were PCI converters before, but then, of course, you needed an Amiga driver for the device that you'd managed to somehow connect to the Zorro slot. So this is basically doing that, but with a Linux kernel driver so that you can run things that already have a PCI driver for them.
Okay, so for 99.9% of the people listening, what does that actually mean? Do you have to have a Commodore Amiga and that means you can attach new hardware to it? Or is this a recreation of hardware?
So yeah, it's a good question. The problem with the Amiga is that bespoke cards for the Amiga are very expensive. Graphics cards are hundreds of dollars, for example, because they're designed specifically for the Commodore Amiga. In theory, with a PCI board in your Amiga, you could put in, a super cheap, I don't know, I'm going to guess an S3 Verge PCI card from, 1998 and use the S3 Verge driver in the Linux kernel and it will just work. And you can probably pick up one of those things for pennies. But probably with more recent things, other kinds of storage boards or audio boards, where there's a Linux driver in the kernel and you can get hold of the board and stick it into the PCI slot. I guess in theory it should work on Linux on the Amiga, so it's not Amiga OS.
This just feels like one of those just because we could do it type things.
Do people actually use them?
People use them with Amiga OS, but not really with Linux, I don't think, because it's just too slow, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the Amiga 4000's the fastest one. But it's still 68,000 based CPUs, so usually with an 040 or an 060, you need, as I remember, and I'm talking 30 years ago, you need a CPU with a memory manager module as an MMU. So only those kind of more expensive 68,000 CPUs come with those. And of course, the amount of RAM that you have is seriously limited.
It's kilobytes, isn't it?
Well, it's 4 or 8 or more megabytes if you have an expansion, if you have a memory expansion. But the Amiga 4000 is the one to do it. But I remember I couldn't get X running, So I don't know how... I'm tempted to try it, but I had such a difficult time trying to get Linux running on my Amiga back in the day that I'm so reluctant.
Yeah, and Linux hasn't exactly got any lighter over the years, has it?
No.
I don't understand what people are doing with these machines.
Well, why would anyone put up a massive aerial and track planes around this guy?
That's happening right now, though. Like, if I was to insert an aerial that would, like, track planes 30 years ago, it wouldn't be much fucking use to me either, would it?
Well, why would anyone get radios and talk to people, on ham radio when they could just use the fucking internet?
Well, when the nuclear strike happens, the only person we know is Will who can do that. So we're all going to be fucking Morse code keying him over the fucking phone line.
No, but I think Joe's right. It's not just nostalgia. There's something about having the ability to understand everything that's going on in a device and kind of turn it into a bit of a project. And the Amiga's kind of the last thing you could do that with.
It just seems bizarre. I'm just picturing these people trying to load up whatever the spreadsheet equivalent on Amiga OS was so they could do their finances.
Well, it's just people scratching itches, isn't it? And fair play to them. Right, well, we'd better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when who knows what it'll be. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelim.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.